like to introduce to you three additional equations that we could be using, or three different additional formulas that we could be using where we have the sum and differences of two angles. And so I have the cosine of alpha minus beta, which is the one that we've introduced in the last couple of videos. We can also derive the cosine of alpha plus beta, the sine of the differences of the angles, and the sine of the addition of the angles. So these are four other formulas that I want you to be familiar with as well, as these tools can also help us to explore and look for other angles that we may not necessarily be able to discover and find. And so one thing that we can do right here is, let's say for example I have the sine of 7 pi over 2, and I want to find its exact value. Well, to do this will be difficult because I don't know what 7 pi over 12 is. And I'm going to have to give you a little bit of a hint on what we can do to kind of reduce this down into either the sine of difference of two angles or the sine of two positive angles. So let's give you the hint what 7 pi over 12 is. Do you remember what 7 twelfths is? 7 twelfths. Well, that also equals 1/3 over 1/4. And I get it. That's something you may not have thought of or knew right away. But now that you see it, you're going, yeah, I think I do kind of know that. Because if I added those together, clever versions of 1, let's make that a 4 times a 4. And over here, a 3 times a 3. So I'd have 4 twelfths over 3 twelfths, which equals 7 twelfths. And then reducing those down, I get a 1/4 and a 1/3 and a 1/4. So what that allows me to do right now is I can rewrite the sine of alpha, which can be, in this case, 1/4 plus 1/3. And let's do the third first and the fourth, just have those left. So then I can rewrite this as the sine of alpha plus beta. So sine, this becomes the sine of 1/3 plus the cosine of beta, which is 1/4, plus the cosine of alpha, which is 1/3, times the sine of beta, which is 1/4. And those are some of the values that I hope, or I should remember. So the sine of 1/3 equals √3 over 2. Cosine 1/4 was √2 over 2. The cosine of 1/3 is 1/2 times the sine of 1/4 was √2 over 2. And then multiplying those together, I have √6 over 4 times √2 over 4. Oh, sorry, that's a plus. I've had a plus all along. And then adding those together, I have √6 plus √2 all over 4. And that becomes the exact value of the sine of 7 pi over 2.